Good afternoon, viewers, and happy Father's Day. What makes you a man is not the ability to have a child, it's the courage to raise one, says Barack Obama. So, this moment, this occasion, we thank all the men who stood courageously to raise our nation's children, including my own father, Prince Albert Churchill Edwards. Such a royalty name, isn't it? Yes. And royalty he is. And I want to take this moment to recognize him as the person who stood with his family to be able to raise us into the men and lady that we are today. So hats off to you, Mr. Edwards. Welcome to Futsal868 Corner Talks. My name is Geoffrey Edwards, series moderator and president of the Futsal Association of Trinidad and Tobago. Futsal868 Corner Talks is an online meetup series where global sporting professionals share their experiences and perspectives on the fastest growing indoor sport in the world, futsal. For this month of June, Futsal868 will be hosting the four-part series entitled Sport and. The education series will look at some of the sectors and professions that are part of the sporting landscape. Today, on Father's Day, in episode 57, we discuss sport and science. Our guests are from the local sports science company, 361 Degrees. Join us is Mr. Anthony Marcano, High Performance Technical Director, and Mr. Christopher Gill, Analyst Consultant at 361 Degrees. Good day, gentlemen.
Hi, good day.
Good day,
good day. Happy Father's Day to your viewers. Yes. And to you, Mr. Edwards.
Thank you.
Happy Father's Day to all.
Gents. Thank you very much, gents. So let's start off with, as always, the definition of sports science or sport and science when it comes to this topic. It is a topic that many in Trinidad and Tobago, and Tony, I have the pleasure of knowing you for years. It took us this long to be on the show, but I brought you on Father's Day. Thank you very much. But I also saw you on another program, and you broke down succinctly as regards to sports science. Tell us here and tell our guests here, sports and science, sports science. What's all this thing about?
Yeah, it's I can't say it's a new phase. It's been around for quite a while. There are simple definitions for it. I mean, we want to know what does that mean? Do I have to be a biologist or a chemist or something in that area to be able to understand what happens here? And it's not necessarily that. It's just the understanding of the body and being able to create high performance. The ESSA, if you want to look at the exercise and sports science, Australia defined it as a multidisciplinary field. Really dealing and understanding the enhancement of human performance. I know it might sound big, but basically it's about getting the human body to perform better. And how do we utilize science to get that? That's basically what it is. We all do science, believe it or not. You do some part of science already in what you do. And you get performance enhancement. Is it effective? Is it maximal? Is it, that's where we have to look at. Type of performances, type of competitions, what is the performance standards that we want to achieve? Now we gotta get deep into science, if we wanna maintain that, So basically, it's just that. It's just being able to get the human body to perform better in sport.
Yeah. I suppose too, sometimes people think science is really like just a sort of a simplistic study of the behavior, physical behavior, I suppose any other type of behavior of things happening through observation and experimentation. That's basically what science is. And that's what we do. We observe play on the field and we, try to observe it and we try to figure out what's happening and study it in a very systemic kind of way so that we can figure out exactly what's going on and then start to make changes or gain insight from the information that we have gathered. So that sort of tops it off. I think one of the things I've always told people, if you can't, it's about that understanding and observation, because a lot of times we are observing something just through subjectively rather than objectively.
Yeah.
So, as regards to the titles that you guys have, Mr. Marcano, you are High Performance Technical Director at 361 Degrees Services. We'll come to 361 Degrees in a little bit. And Mr. Gill, you are an analyst consultant. Please, guys, gents, explain to us these beautiful titles, which I hope has a nice big package behind it.
Boy, let me go first, Anthony. Let me go first, because Anthony gonna have a long explanation as to what you will give me a long. I suppose both of us do the high performance consultancy and directors, but I mean, I'm not a director at 361. We analyze data that we collect through a number of systems. We use video, we use GPS tracking, we use heart rate monitors to collect data. And collecting data by itself doesn't help. You have to be able to analyze the data. So that means that the person, such as myself or Anthony, has to be able to look at all this data and make sense of it. We have to break it down. And that breaking down of data comes from years of experience, knowledge, studies, seeing sports, understanding many aspects of sports, human movement, all of these things, aerobic fitness, many of these things, so that we can look at these figures that might just look like figures to an ordinary person, and we can look at it and say, oh, this is what's happening here, this is what's happening here. We can analyze, break down, and do that sort of thing. So that's more what I do, especially in the area of fitness. So my expertise might be more that with fitness. So I would use, more of the GPS tracking and stuff where I can look at it and see how fit a guy is relative to how fit they should be. Anthony is different, so he'll tell you what he does.
For me, high performance is a multitude of services. It is not just one area. When you look at high performance, and me being the high performance technical director, is trying to put all these things in place for athletes, young athletes, elite athletes, and trying to figure out how best we could get performance improved. So when you look at high performance, and if you just take it pieces, high performance entails psychology. It entails nutritionists. It entails strength and conditioning. It entails video analysis and tracking. There are many facets. You have physiology, and also most importantly, you have education. We have to educate people. We have to let them understand it's not just about 361, but it's also to share with everybody else what this is about. One of the studies that I did was to recognize the downfall in our performances, and one of it was specifically sports science. We are very good at teaching skills and understanding the games that we play. This is normal. We are good, very, very good at that. I'm not going to take anything away from coaches at this point. Where we fall slightly on performance is on that science side. The application of nutrition to sport, the application of psychology to sport. And there are many people around that doing everything in silos, but we're not doing it together. If we could put it together, I think the performances are going to be much better. And this is where 361 trying to bridge that gap. But we have people on board, nutritionists on board that will assist with people we get into contact with. We have psychologists on board that's going to assist in that manner. So there's a lot of us making up this team, strength and conditioning persons and stuff. A lot of us make up this team. And this is the important thing about high performance for me. Chris is a part of it. Chris is very good at the analytical side, looking at the heart rate monitors, matching it to performance, advising what we could do to improve performance in fitness areas and stuff like that. He's very good at recognizing that information and being able to recommend solutions, as we are solution-based. I could also assist in that, but I focus on the video analysis side, the GPS tracking side. And then we match everything together and see, are we getting these players improved? Where are they falling short? Can we prevent injury? Very, very important for athletes. We can assess injury before it happens. This is important.
Yep.
And because of that, this is where this entire team and 361 degrees has that kind of a full package for sport, you know?
Yeah.
It's very
And
interesting.
one of the things
go ahead,
I was going to
Christopher.
say that one of the things that Anthony talked about there is that cooperation. So when we do stuff, we have to work together. So it's not just about what he's seeing on the video and what I'm seeing on the heart rate monitors, and both of us are seeing on the GPS tracking. We then have to add that into what are the systems or the culture that that team is operating under. What's the psychology they're operating under? What might be the other factors that they're operating under that are showing us the data that we are seeing, because the data just tells you the one thing that, an example of data is a guy ran 3K in a football match. Well, that's all the data tells you. It doesn't tell you why, how he ran that 3K, what were things being done, was there a plan for him? And so all of these things we also have to understand. Nutrition, we had an incident where a guy was running a high heart rate, and then when we asked him, his nutrition was poor. We found out that day that his nutrition on that day was poor. So there's so many factors that we have to look at to make somebody perform at that higher level. It doesn't just happen. It's not guesswork. You really need to put plans and structures in place, observe, and do a sort of take insight and then recalculate and go forward trying to make a plan so that things get better.
Listening to President of TTOC, Mr. Brian Lewis, on a recent Twitter space, he spoke to opportunities that young persons have in order to change the sporting landscape in Trinidad and Tobago and regionally, outside of just being in administration and also an athlete. And in hearing you guys speak, it recognizes that there are opportunities for persons to get into these programs in a whole different form and fashion. With that being said, Christopher, I go to you. What education opportunities are there for young persons who would want to get into such, and also to monetize this opportunity? Because I believe that in the sporting industry, in order to build an industry, we have to look at the revenue generating opportunities there are to help do such, right? And to be able to make these things into jobs and careers. Where can persons be educated in these? And before you go, I know that on Mona campus there is the physiotherapy. In Cave Hill there is the sports science, in UTT as well. Outside of that, are there any other opportunities, programs that persons can look to to be educated in the sphere of sport and sports science?
Ooh, you want the politically correct answer? I could give you that, or I could give you the real answer.
No, we're not doing the political correct on this show.
I would say at this time, I don't think there are enough opportunities or enough programs for sports science in the Caribbean, certainly in Trinidad. I think UTT is definitely trying, and more needs to be done. But culturally, I don't think we, even with the best efforts of Brian Lewis, I don't think we seriously consider sport and industry just yet. I think we like to think that, we talk about it a lot, we want to have an industry, yes, we want to have a sport industry, but we don't have one. And every time things like this come up or is presented to anybody in that little silo, like if we go to football or if we go to any of these sports, it's always a sort of, we're not sure, and a lot of it is because they don't understand. The culture is not there for us to make that step forward. Yet we keep seeing it all around us. So like you look at a Premier League football match, everybody has on GPS trackers on the field. Guys who are doing athletics, cycling, they track all the riders, they know all their power outputs, that these are things that are done all the time. But we are still sort of like, well, we're not sure, I don't know how, and that's the part where education comes in, like Anthony was talking about. So we want to do it. There's a desire to do it, but we have not really done it. We still looking over the precipice and not sure if we want to take that leap. That's what I'll say for that.
That is extremely interesting to say the least, Christopher, in terms of not being politically correct. Tony, tell us your input as regards to the educational standpoint, because I totally agree with you, because at the end of the day, we need to take the sport industry serious. We need to create a sport industry. And as I said before, I always speak to having competent, educated persons, right persons in the right places, doing the right things, gives us the right results. So here for sports science, how do we get the right persons, Anthony, in the right places, doing the right things?
Yeah, some difficult
When it
questions
comes
there,
to, when it comes to we don't do anything else but sports science. Let me just see this.
No. What I'm saying is, I think
we don't have the rest of the year to talk about.
Yes, you're right. I think the main thing, and again, I always commend the TTOC and their drive. The drive towards trying to educate, leading with Mr. Lewis, Ms. Annette Knott, head of the commission, education commission of the TTOC, and the staff there. It's a lot of things that we're trying to do, and one of them is to bridge the gap. And not only on the fact of coaches, we believe that the coaches has to be developed, agreed, but also administrators. I think the administrators also need to be developed and understand the importance of science. Science is something that it's not like instant coffee. You can't just throw it in water and expect it to turn into coffee with milk and everything in it already. It takes some time. And I don't think that everybody understands that process. And there are some coaches out here that understand the process and understand it takes some time, and there's a manner in which you go about doing it. But I don't think everybody is on the same page. And the only way we could get people on the same page is to educate and try to show how it can interact. People out here, coaches out here have been doing a lot of courses within the TTOC. We have done a lot of stuff. 361 Degrees has tried to be that person, that foot on the ground, trying to assist sports and educate coaches, practical as well, even though we know it's difficult during this COVID time. But we have been trying to assist in sports generally. And this is a big thing. I think education and consistency and just being there for people to support. 361 Degrees is a support unit for sport. We're not a here all and do what we are a support unit. At the end of the day, coaches and the administrators know what they want and what they need to do. It is important, however, that if we want to step to the next level, that we must include science in what we do. That's the main thing. Once we have an understanding, and again, I commend the futsal and your leadership in understanding the need to have that as a back end, to support the athletes. It's amazing that athletes now tend to learn better by actually just video alone, just seeing themselves, making a mistake and fixing it off the bat, and saying, oh, I did that. It's no longer a thing of, well, you did this and no, coach, I didn't do that. Now we have reviews. You could look at it, you could say, oh, yeah, this is what I did. Okay. And that education, have athletes, calling 361, can I get my videos? Can I see what I was doing? This is a big jump in in many of these sports for athletes to now get more interested in wanting to see themselves, wanting to improve, wanting to learn. We have coaches that actually, send their periodization plans and say, can you vet this for us? Let's just see how we can get this better. This is amazing. As again, sometimes I say it's a chisel and a big mountain, but at least we cut in something and people starting to get involved, and this is the key thing to me. We're going to get there. You look at just the TTOC and Mr. Lewis vision, right? 10 goals by 2024. I don't think everybody understands what that was, what that 10 goals meant. And how do we get that? By doing the same thing that we're doing over and over. We know that's insanity, right? We have to do something different. What's the difference? Maybe science, a little more sports science, and maybe we'll get there, So that's what it is.
As we speak about 361, the Futsal Association of Trinidad Tobago has built a relationship with 361 over the years, and more recently, you all had a major input as regards the men's national futsal team. We want our guests. We're going to take this opportunity to be able to showcase what exactly 361 did for the Futsal Association of Trinidad Tobago. We hope that you'll enjoy it, guys.
I believe that 361 has been a big part of that.
We did a lot of work with futsal initially, especially with the fitness and the GPS tracking. And what it allowed the coaches to do is to know exactly how far the players are traveling, how much they're running, how much they're sprinting, how much they're accelerating. A lot of times, coaches looking on at the game and it's all guessing. Many meters are running. And so now we could actually formulate that training to do 50 sprints in their training.
The interactions with 361 allowed us to not only look at the data in terms of the players' fitness, but also helped us with the overall planning, addressing areas such as player well-being, nutrition, hydration. It definitely allowed us to have a better conversation in terms of the preparation of the players in all areas that needed to be addressed at this level.
It's data that is clear and concise and very accurate. So now our coach knows exactly what a player is doing, how much he's running, how fast he's running.
So that was 361 services to the Futsal Association of Trinidad Tobago. So when it is we bring an organization such as 361 to the show, is not just blindsidedly. As a matter of fact, most of the organizations that we were bringing on for the sport and organizations which we have a relationship with or we are going to have a relationship with. So the proof is in the pudding as regards to what the sports science have done for the men's national futsal team. Tony, I want to bring you into some of the things that were not seen in that video that 361 was able to deliver, even from the phone calls you would have gotten prior to their leaving to Costa Rica, while in Costa Rica, while in Guatemala, that organizations can understand the importance of sports science in the preparation too. And I wanted to be quite clear that 361 should have been given more time with the guys. It is very important to also understand that what you put in is what you get out. And leadership is very important in terms of not only the administrative side of it, but the technical side in terms of persons recognizing the importance of what they need to do. And Tony, I really want you to explain to our audience, as simple as it may be, the rest and recovery, the advice, the consultation that you all give as regards to rest and recovery and all the other things, as I said before, that is not in the video. Please share with us.
I think that's where the expertise comes in, and being able to collect all this data, as Chris was rightfully saying. There's data that's going to be collected. So you would have seen them having on this black vest that would have been tracking them on the field, checking the distances that they ran, high speed, how much running they did. These kind of things we will be able to pull from individual players. From that, you would have seen them wearing a kind of a belt around their chest. That would have been their heart rate monitors that we were monitoring live at training. So we could have been able to identify how the heart rate was matching up to the sprints maybe that they were doing on the field or doing training. When we collect this data, then we sit with it and we look at it and say, okay, what is it that they may be falling short in? And what we do is we produce reports to the coaches and the technical staff as to what that data meant. And not only just what it meant, but what we are deficient in, what the players are deficient in, and what area we need to improve in. That helps the trainer now decipher, okay, how do I adjust training to match what the data has just told us? And being able to adjust their training to match that and get rid of that deficiency. That's one thing. If we look at, as well as when you were in Costa Rica, or when, actually before you went to Guatemala, we actually did set plays. So what we did is that we opened up a online accessibility for the coaching staff and technical staff and all, to be able to actually see videos, see the set plays. We actually send that set play to the athlete's phone so that they were able to look it over to understand this is the right thing to do, and being able to watch that consistently to actually get it, what we call, not necessarily muscle memory, but just basically to understand that this is what it is all the time. We also open up an avenue where the coaches would have gotten specific, what we call video clips as well, and information on each athlete, where they could have accessed it 24/7. And during that period, at any point in time, the technical staff wanted to have meetings, they were able to pull that video out and be able to have their meetings on specific situations that were happening, whether during game, in training, and we were supporting that on the back end. Heading across to Costa Rica, taking their practice game. Again, it's always best to have us there live, yes, but sometimes we can also work remote. So not having there live, we were able to take games and actually decipher the games and send back to the coach and give some information reporting-wise on that. We look at if we can only work with the team that we play with, but we also look at the opponent. So we also were able to look at an opponent, decipher the opponent, give the technical staff some information about the opponent. And again, it comes from the technical staff, from the coach's experience. So they say, listen, I want to see these actions. I want to see these plays. I want to know what they're doing. Who's the key player? How much time that person is on the ball? Where does the ball travel when it's going towards them? Where do they turn over the ball? Information like this is passed on to the coach. And from there on now, strategy and tactics comes from his or her knowledge. That's not our job to do that. Again, as I say, we are a support unit for that reason. But we're able to generate reports, generate our solution base, what we think we need to do, what we could do to help. When we look at it, we also were able to identify, as Chris was identifying, where the nutrition wasn't up to par. what they ate before they came to training, whether it would have created excess water in the body, that they might have been overweight, and therefore weighing in and weighing out was a key thing that we advised the technical staff about. Weighing the athletes when they come in, weighing them when they go out, to see if there's any loss of water, dehydration, and how we match the dehydration. Especially as you guys play indoors. Futsal is playing indoors a lot. People think because we're in AC we don't sweat, but they become very highly dehydrated. And because of that, we needed to match the fluids to the hydration levels. And we can measure that by weighing in and weighing out, and being able to assist each athlete, as you say, sweat differently. Not everybody sweats the same. So not all athletes will need the same amount of water to cover. You know, a simple equation we taught the athletes was, you know what, for every pound of weight that you've lost, you need to drink 16 ounces of water. And, you know, for recovery purposes, you know, try to get something in your system within 30 minutes after, you know, you place some sort of protein back in your system to help any muscle recovery and these kind of things. We identified to them as well that they weren't resting enough. I think some of the athletes were overtraining. And this happens a lot where sometimes as coaches, we know our athletes when they're in our environment. What do they do when they're not in the environment? Are they going and play some other sport? And, you know, Trinidad is a multitude of sporting personnel. We play a lot of sports. When I was growing up, I was playing football, cricket, hockey, rugby, you know, table tennis. I was a national table tennis player before I became a hockey player. So when you're doing that, you need to figure out now, okay, are we overtraining this athlete? Is this athlete coming to us tired? And are we trying to train them just in the same manner as everybody else? And maybe we can't do that because we could then create that injury that we were trying to prevent. We could identify that by the time the athlete comes and puts on that heart rate monitor and kind of give us an idea as to where he is or where he or she is in a manner, and advise the coach as such. Is this athlete ready to train? Maybe even coming back out of injury. Are we training the athlete too hard? Are we stressing the athlete? You know, these are the information that we could advise coaches. We could advise the technical staff. And the administration, as I'm saying, needs to understand how important this role is to keep healthy athletes so that they can survive throughout the sporting career that they have in front of them. If you want to keep them healthy, you don't want them to be in injury and not being able to partake in the sport or whatever the situation is. So what we do in the back end is so heavily focused to performance. And as I say, we try to create a turnover time of 24 hours. So we're not going to delay information for a coach from a training session in a week time. That information is no longer valid. The information has to be timely, as we know the aspects of information. So that has to be there, and we have to support in that manner and understand the coaches. Sometimes what we do, and I'm saying this kind of on the record, but off the record, it looks as it's more work for a coach. When that support comes, it's more work, because now we're being defined as to, listen, these are the issues we have to fix. Do we have enough time to fix it? You know, when we look at science and we say, okay, how long does it take for an athlete to develop strength? How long does it take to develop speed? If 361 degrees is brought in a period of time, let's just say you have 10 weeks before you travel, what possible thing can we improve in that space of time where speed and conditioning is concerned? Maybe we could improve it, but it's not going to be that great. You know, the involvement has to be throughout training and coming up with the athletes, understanding the athletes, and building a program to get them to the state that you want them to be at when competition comes around. And that takes time.
I want to go to Christopher, but you brought that last statement really got me thinking.
Yeah.
Because I, for myself, and I think a lot of persons listening may also think that 361 sport and science may only be for competition purposes only.
No.
And also we're going to introduce another terminology here called long-term athletic development, a big term that I learned last year through TTOC. Right? So thank you very much, TTOC. I learned a big term, and I'm throwing it back at your own TTOC people. Nice. Good. I feel good about that.
I wonder who was the lecturer, boy.
I don't know,
yeah,
boy. That's when I'm feeling good here now. My lecture in the house. All right. So, sir, tell us how the sport and science sports science 361 and long-term athletic development come into play? Because again, I was very impressed with understanding that the former pyramid that we grew up knowing, the bottom-up approach, whereby the numbers, the fallout occur as you go higher up, it has now been replaced by a rectangle in terms of to reduce the less fallout. I'm going good.
You're looking like you're doing your studies.
I thank you, sir. Thank you. I remember things. With that being said,
Yeah.
You're going good.
Where does sports science fall into community-based sport? Where does sports science fall into village Olympics, village sports, the youth man sweating on the street? Where does sports science fall into, and how can parents and even an athlete get involved in sports science? And another question, I know there's a multitude of questions that are coming up with you.
Yes.
At what age should an athlete, a human being, be involved in sports science?
All right, let me see. It's a multitude, but I'll go back to a couple practical examples we had with 868. We were looking at the heart rates one practice, and we've just found that one guy's heart rate kept running very high and his recovery was very poor. And I go over to Paul Deckel, who's the assistant coach, and I said, hey, I think this guy is having a problem. After the match, after the practice session, he goes and he talks to the guy and realizes apparently the guy didn't eat properly that day, had a very long day at his job. So these are things that sometimes just as a person, as a trained eye, actually, you can see. One of the things we did also with 868 futsal was based on how the heart rates were running and the fitness, we told Constantine, the coach, say, listen, you need to have a different substitution policy. We would suggest that you can't have guys more on the playing field for 3 minutes. You should group your guys, 1 minute guys, 2 minute guys, 3 minute guys, maybe 4 minute guys, and literally use them like that right through. And basically, in the end, that's what he did. He grouped his guys. You would have seen that some guys ran maybe a minute and a half, and they were off. And again, it was because of their tactical impact, but two, that tactical impact is very much affected by their physical ability or their lack of recovery or their recovery. So whichever way you want to put it. So those are things that that's, clear-cut examples of how we affected strategy, how we affected, what was happening, his style of play, lots of things happening within the team, besides just what somebody might say, well, you poke somebody here and you prod somebody there to get a reading of what their blood is. Coming to long-term athlete development, science has taught us that there is a point at which we should start training kids in a particular sport. And what we have done culturally in Trinidad and Tobago is we just think that age is age 5, and it isn't. So I had this conversation with an athletic coach the other day. She had athletes that were 6 years old, running, doing athletic type events, running, long jumps, throwing the shot put and all of that. And that is so vastly different from them getting physically literate and learning a multitude of different aspects of physical movement, of locomotion, of different things. So long-term athlete development is important in that regard. And the science shows you why. There are things like, strength training doesn't really begin until you get to a certain age. You can't do speed training. It isn't highly effective until you get to a certain age. And all of these things are based on science. We realize that this is when the growth rate is at its peak. It's called peak velocity, a high peak velocity. And you want to make sure that those things are happening before we start doing things with our kids. But we have never been taught that. We sort of feel that we get a kid and we have them doing the same sport since they're age 6. And then they get to age 19 and they get an injury and nobody understands why. And quite often it's because they've been learning to kick a ball, never learned to kick it the right way to begin with. And then that defect has gone all the way through 13 years later, 14 years later, and now it shows itself up when they're under extreme pressure of training and at a, let's say a very high level pro league in Trinidad or super league or something like that. So those are the ways that science and long-term athlete development sort of come together. We are, trying to make sure that we have athletes for the long term and we have better athletes, and that those athletes are performing higher or at a higher standard when they do get to a higher, that later level. We have so many sports in Trinidad that we have the best 10-year-olds in the Caribbean, in the world. We have the best 12-year-olds in the world. Swimming, classic example of a sport where we have some of the best 12-year-olds, 15-year-olds, but we don't have the best 20-year-olds. And I can go on and on with sports like that. We have tons of sports. If we take an under 14 football team to an under 14 tournament, we'll probably do reasonably well. But 4 years later, those same guys go back to play that under 18 team, and they're not in the same league. It's a whole different gap. And that is the same with a lot of sports. And the reason for that is because what we're doing with them when they're 12 and 13 and 14 is probably the same thing that we're doing with them when they're 17 and 18. And we're not understanding. And we haven't developed the athlete. We haven't developed the footballer to his maximum potential. Or the cricketer or the cyclist. I could go on and on. So that is where science and long-term athlete development certainly have that connection, and we try our best to think. Where it comes into the community side of things, for me, I think we need to start getting people to be more scientific about things. So you get a community football team, don't make them run for an hour without drinking water. That just don't work, or certain things.
Where all it was when I was growing up, boy.
Things like that, I mean, some of the things that I remember I had a coach who he would make us run for, I don't know how long, we in a 2-hour practice session, and then try to do sprints at the end. And he would be upset that we weren't fast. Well, we tired. We're so tired, we can't run. So some of these basic principles of training and coaching affects every athlete, and at the community level, it's where it's probably most widespread in terms of the lack of knowledge, the lack of understanding of how science affects sports. So it affects the most amount of athletes. It's the widest amount of athletes affected. And that's where the problems begin, to be quite honest.
If I could chime in here as well, Jeffrey, if possible. When we come to the grassroots, what I could say, that community base and stuff. And remember earlier I said that we're doing science and you don't even know you're doing science. Remember I said that? All right. And there's a term that you use, and I want you, before I even go, I want to understand. You always speak of athletes. However, many people speak of players. There's a difference between an athlete and a player. A player is an individual who plays the sport consistently. An athlete is an individual that is developed through multitude of sports and therefore could then become a proper athlete that could diversify themselves in any sport.
Yeah.
We have players.
I wanted to repeat that, please. No, because I am on I'm learning, but I also want persons to understand that when we talk about somebody involved in sport, we are looking at both the competitive and the recreational side of sport.
Yeah.
And this is something that we are, even in Trinidad and Tobago, we are losing. So, Mr. Marcano, please repeat that. That is an extremely important statement.
So, a player is a person that plays a sport. So, you have a 5-year-old that says, I'm a footballer from 5 years old going all the way up. I'm a player. I want an athlete. And you spoke about long-term athlete development. Long-term athlete development states that at age 14 is when the athlete will pick the sport that they will then diversify into. But before that time, they must be involved in as many sports as they could possibly play.
Yeah.
You understand? So we want athletes. So what you tend to happen is that fallout of athletes that you were speaking about. It's simply, now we have early specialization sports Gymnastics is one of that. Swimming is also an early specialization sport, and therefore these sports are kind of ad hoc to the situation. But does it make a difference? Ask yourself. When I was growing up, as I said, in school, I played football, badminton, basketball, cricket, and I did that throughout my school career.
Yeah.
I played all these sports.
Let me chime in a little bit too. I'll say this. So even in the case of swimming, and I brought up that sport, but if you look at the last 2-3 Olympics, the age of the gold medal winners and the people who are medaling has gotten consistently older. 20 years ago, a lot of 17s, 18-year-olds, you might have got a couple 20-year-olds. Now, mostly people winning medals in swimming 23, 24, 27. So they have actually backed it down and worked out that they can actually start a little later and extend the life of their athletes much longer than rather than having
athletes. You will lose
because they were losing athletes
for dropping out.
Right?
You know,
and when it comes to athletes, I always say from my sport, which is cycling, which is very, very fitness based, especially endurance aspect of cycling. I always tell my cyclists, if you have two riders who are, for all things intents, exactly the same, the better athlete will beat the non-athlete every single day of the week. So I always say you need the better athlete to be a better footballer. You need to be a better athlete to be a better basketballer. You need to be a better athlete to be a better swimmer. If you are a better athlete, you will be better at those sports.
And I'll say one of the things, Jeffrey, and I always commend the TGOC. Right now, we are doing courses for the community coaches. Mm-hmm. And as I was telling you before, we do it naturally. Simple things as taking an athlete when they come to your environment, taking their weight, taking their height, taking their arm's length, taking their foot length. This is simple things that you think, well, what's that about? That tells us a lot. It tells us a lot about the athlete. And I'm saying there's no big fancy equipment needed for this. You understand? It's a simple thing. We could sit down and say, okay, let's do some simple science and say, okay, if I ask you to run, or we educate, let's educate the athlete. If you want to know your maximum heart rate, you take 220 and minus 8. That's an absolute kind of value. So we teach the athlete, 220 minus 8 is a maximum heart rate. I didn't take a piece of equipment to work that out. I'm teaching the athlete about mathematics and teaching you to calculate and to subtract. That's what I'm teaching you there already. Yep. Fine. Once I'm able to do that, and we know exercise, and we do whether it be a sprint or a run, and I stop the athlete and say, okay, check your pulse. And check your pulse for 10 seconds. Whatever number you get, multiply it by 6. That's your current heart rate. What percentage of that is your max heart rate? Am I training? Do I want to train them at 100% or 80% of their heart rate? I can then decipher I am overtraining them. I don't want them at 80%. I want them at 70%. So I need to take the exercise down a bit. This is no equipment, but this is the science that you're utilizing to train the athletes to understand how to measure themselves while in training. Are we training the right thing? We as the coaching staff, are we training what we want to train? Are we getting the effect we want? If we want to train the athlete, intensity-wise, very high, am I getting that effect from them? Which athlete is not, we talk about it, which athlete skipping in the back? Which athlete not running hard and not working hard? When I tell you to check your athlete and you give me the number, then I can decipher, hey, I don't want you in that heart. I need you at a higher heart. I need you to run faster. I need you to put out more effort. You know what I mean? And then you're already doing science.
Simple things too.
You know what? There's something I learned last year. One second, Christopher. Last year from the course that you did at TTOC, Mr. Marcano, was with LTAD, you found that many athletes developed at different rates, at different stages. And I always remember Carlos Edwards. For me, the typical, because he never made a national youth football team in spite of being technically and tactically sound a player because he was small. Carlos, if people don't remember, Carlos Edwards was a very small guy growing up. And he was up against the Brent Rahims, the Leslie Tiger Fitzpatricks, who were a little bit bigger and more robust in that regard. Many of the coaches overlooked him because of his physical stature. But at the same point in time, he was able to go on and represent us at a World Cup, the only time that he played for a national team. And when I heard about the LTAD and that aspect of in LTAD, I always remember Carlos Edwards. So I want you to speak to that. Additionally, the psychological fallout of being pressured in a single sport aspect. We are seeing it globally, the mental failure, stresses in terms of where it is you find that a 17, 18-year-old child is let go by the Manchester Cities. There are suicide attempts. Even here in Trinidad Tobago, I have grown up with a lot of athletes who are extremely talented who don't even want to play fat match football again. And they were national youth players who were extremely gifted. It's like they had enough eating the same food for the last 20 years. They ain't want no more. I'm fed up. I ain't want no more.
I'm gonna give you a joke, Jeffrey.
Yeah.
We had a coach who was on one of our programs administered by the TTOC. She was doing periodization, and she in a chat with us talked about the fact that during her career as a swimmer, she practically did the same training for over 6 years straight. Every Monday was the same thing, every Tuesday was the same thing, every Wednesday was the same thing, and so on. And you look at it and you just tell yourself, well, my word, all I remember thinking when she was telling me that is, you survived 6 years, I would not survive 6 weeks. And I think a lot of coaches don't grasp it. For example, you talked about long-term athlete development. So let's say you have a basketball team and you have somebody who has a naturally high jump, which tells us that he is probably a sprinter. He has fast twitch muscle. Yet you're not, where you play this player and what position you play him in might be based on other factors. You might decide you're playing him in the back because he's short, and you're not playing him as he's not getting rebounds or he's thing. But eventually he will get tall. He might get tall when he's 14 or 15, So those are things that I think coaches don't understand. They just look at what they see, but they don't test to see what else is there. When I ran the academy for cycling in Pennsylvania that I worked at, the first time, which is the other big factor with long-term athlete development, is appearance. I remember in winter taking the bunch of kids and saying, no, this Friday we're not doing any training. We're going down to the indoor park and play football or baseball. And I had a rebellion on my hands. And my director came to me and was up in arms. And I said, no, I'm not backing down. This is what it's supposed to be. And eventually we went there and the kids had more fun than the parents could ever believe. The parents had more fun than they could believe. And that started to become a regular thing, so that at least I had cyclists that could do things like kick a ball, play baseball, run up and down, do tons of other sports. So you got to understand that it really has an effect, because out of that academy, over 70% of them are still riding in the United States and at an elite level, and that kind of keeps their longevity. So that these are the things that we need to do. Periodization is, and I'll talk about that. Periodization is the ability to break up a training plan into specific periods or phases so that the athlete and the coach have specific aims for each phase and period. Usually there's we break it up into what we call a prep period, pre-comp, competition phase, and then probably a rest and recovery phase, which will come after the competition prior to the start of a new season. And then we might break that up into even smaller blocks. And that allows us to plan training sessions and to know what each period or what each specific block of a training session is targeting. If it's speed endurance, if it's strength, if it's aerobic endurance. So for me as a cycling coach, I have been doing periodization for 15 plus years, maybe more. I'll have to say a lot more. And that's the only way my athletes have ever been able to succeed. Yeah. I don't know, Anthony could chime in.
Yeah,
Go ahead,
please
Jeffrey.
do.
You go ahead.
No, please do. Tell me some more about
Okay.
periodization because I'm hearing him speak to the.
I don't want to confuse. I don't want to confuse the audience much and going to ask them
No,
only
no,
for
no,
time,
no,
right?
no.
But I'm going to be very
here-
simple.
I'm hearing him speak to pre-com as well in it, yeah?
Yeah.
So go ahead.
I'm going to be very simple in it. Coaches already do some sort of periodization because they have to plan their session. Going up to competition, they have to plan it. Doesn't matter what. They're going to plan either they're going to train passing, headering, free kicks, whenever they want to introduce it. That's a plan, right? Okay, no problem. What periodization does is says, listen, a little bit of science. What should we be doing in a certain period before competition? So, we as Chris was saying, you're going to split this time up. And you're already doing that because if you're going to work passing, you might do it for 1 week. Okay, fine. No problem. You're doing it for 1 week. How about when I'm going to train aerobic capacity? When do I want them to get the fittest? Or when do I want to run them the most so that I could get them as fit as possible? Really train that aerobic capacity build. Maybe in the early stages. So I have to include that in the early part of my training. Again, this is a year training plan that you might be doing, or it might be a 6-month training plan, or it might be a 3-month. But you got to put aside some time when you could work on some sort of aerobic capacity. Okay. At some point in time, you're going to stop working aerobic capacity and you want to work now on speed. You have already built a nice base for the athlete. They're fit, they can run. I'm not say fit, I'm going to use that word loosely. You have built an aerobic capacity. Now we want to work on speed. So you're going to allot some sort of time to speed within your training plan. So you have this training plan, and then you're going to allot some time for speed. Getting closer to competition, you're going to start to work on either playing practice games or doing penalties or doing free kicks or doing set plays. Okay, fine. In that period, what else do I do? What else am I going to do? Am I going to work on the mental side of the game and get their mental, capacity built? Do I want them to be able to make decisions on the field? Maybe that's the best time to introduce it. I'm going to introduce it then. So periodization is just taking a block of time from your competition, working backwards, and trying to see what we're going to do in different ages and in different times. You speak about LTAD. Now we're going to get scientific, where LTAD is now stages by ages. So different ages at different stages. So we have a 5 to 7 in girls. What do we do at that time? As Chris was actually saying, do I do speed? We say, no, you don't do speed. You do aerobic. They're already going to be aerobic, max velocity and running already by themselves. That's the fun time. So we train that. There are certain things we're not going to train at the period in time. And how are we going to do it? We have 7 stages. What are we going to do in these 7 stages based on ages? You understand? So it becomes scientific there, but every coach already plans for whatever sport that they're doing. All periodization does is implement some sort of science in the back end. So, for example, we should test every 4 weeks because it takes 4 weeks to improve your physical abilities, speed endurance, and all these different things. The strength takes 6 weeks. So I will test strength in 6 weeks. After my first test, every 6 weeks, I'll see if my players are getting stronger or not. And if they're not getting stronger in the 6 weeks, then I need to improve the plan. I'm going to check and see if they're getting faster, if the speed endurance getting better. If it's not, then I need to adjust the plan and implement it more to get more improvement. This is all that you're doing. This is what you need to understand. You lose speed. If you don't change speed in 5 days, you begin to deplete your speed. So if I don't tap into it in 5 days, I'm losing that speed already. I need to do some training in speed.
So with all this, because periodization is now the new watchword.
I want to teach you to make it a watchword.
For a lot of coaches. When I use the word watchword because it didn't become a Good Friday bubbly just yet. Right? But it is a road march. You hear a lot of coaches is all of a sudden, as they get this newfound knowledge, they're real beating it. No, my question is periodization for everyone? Meaning, is periodization for the community coach, the school coach,
the answer to
the club
that,
the
no
national
bother to keep going on. The answer to that question is
Jeffrey, I
yes,
can employ you with 361 degrees, then you would understand what we look at. 361 degrees, as much as we work with elite athletes, more focus is on the youth and the community levels in it. If we don't build that base correctly, if we do not build that base correctly, there's no elite to come.
Ah,
361
Yep.
focus is in the communities. We are in Mayaro right now. We are doing a swimming program at the Mayaro Resource Center with swimming. We are trying our best to include futsal. We include in badminton. We include in volleyball. So our athletes who are swimming has to be involved in all the sports because we understand long-term athlete development. You understand? And they are also being scientifically inclined. So we have them, our swimmers wear vests, wear belts to monitor their heart rate in the water so we can see what their performance is like.
And I'm happy that you mentioned that because I don't want, again, the road march sung by Auntie Marcano called Periodization and waved by every single coach in Trinidad and Tobago. Or they only take a certain part of the lyric.
Yeah.
Yes. And they use it just like in the gospel. I know yes, when you take a certain verse, you know, within 3 verses before and 3 verses after, you only taking this one verse for this particular context, right?
Yeah.
And they're not understanding that periodization goes hand in hand with LTAD. Periodization starts not only comes up competition, periodization is supposed to be a holistic.
But Jeffrey, periodization.
I just want to make sure.
It matches nutrition. It matches psychology. All of these has to be periodized with the skill sessions, you know. It is not just skills.
So, I follow a podcast called Science of Sport and one of the most successful cycling programs and a couple of the other strength and conditioning coaches in many of the football clubs, they run their strength and conditioning program to go along with the periodization that the other coaches are running. So they even periodize that. That's the level that they are. So everything is fit into that periodization plan. And this is where coach education comes in, because one of the things with 361 is especially with TTOC, we're trying to educate coaches that regardless of what age you're coaching at, you need to start periodizing your program so that kids can have a time when they can rest and grow, because the improvement doesn't happen when you're training, it happens when you're resting. And that's one of the key things that a lot of people don't understand. So in my personal example, I coached a guy called Guy Costa, former national cyclist, Caribbean champion, one of the few Trinidadians probably to win the Caribbean Championship ever. And it would be 3 weeks of hard work. I mean, we would be sometimes 20 to 25 hours on the bike for that week, 500 miles, lots of intervals. And then that 4th week would be time to ease up and do certain things. And people would say, well, you're not training this week. Yeah, we are. But this is the part of the training where his body gets stronger. Mentally, because after 3 weeks of hard training, morning and evening, in some cases, 100-mile days on a Saturday, mentally he's trashed. This is also a guy that had a job. So to try and put somebody through that for 20 straight weeks, they're psychologically, they're dead. Emotionally, they're going to be stressed out. Physically, their body's going to be trashed. So you got to work these things out. So it happens at the lower level, especially with kids. If they're doing too much hard work, if they're not having enough fun, if they're not periodizing the programs, then it stops being fun. And then what you get is kids saying, well, I don't want to be part of this anymore.
Exactly.
I think I want to.
I wanna leave.
I want out.
Vital in what he's saying. I want to leave it with 2 things here. More is not always better. Quality is your best. The body only adapts when it rests. And also, 361 degrees is not about elite. I want you to remember, I want your viewers to understand this. We believe that the grassroots is where we need to be. We need to educate coaches. We need to work with coaches.
I was just about to ask that because we now have in Trinidad and Tobago the fitness industry where a lot of persons are involved in boot camps. And, everybody wants to lose weight. And then you have so many persons, many of them may not be necessarily trained to be able to get persons money, but that's a whole different story.
Yeah,
it is.
Because periodization exist in that industry as well? Because it's a sport we are speaking. We are speaking sport and science. Does periodization also occur in a 35-year-old mom who has 2 kids and want to lose weight? A 45-year-old dad who I spent 6 years building my career. I get a little belly heavy. I see a fitness program there, and I think I want to join and become a partner. Tell me, good, it worked for him. Does periodization, should these individuals look, Google, YouTube periodization to understand a little more? Tony, talk to me. Talk to the people, I should say. Talk to the people.
Yeah, I would say, in everything that you do, once it comes to anything dealing in performance or change, you need to have some sort of periodized plan. Need to, must. I think what happens in the industry, as you're saying, and I don't want to bash this industry, but what happens a lot of times is that most of the times, the way that you tend to say you want to lose, and this is where we get caught up, right? So you go into this so-called class, and in a week, you lose some pounds, and you're saying, wow. But you didn't understand that pounds might have been water, right? And you feel they lose all these pounds. No problem, you lose the pounds. Ask yourself when you plateau, and you're not losing any more pounds. As far as you're concerned, I losing weight, because I have seen this movement. Anytime you do an exercise that is beyond what you are accustomed doing, you're going to get some results. You're going to get the results.
Sunday evening, boy. Sunday evening.
Yeah, you're going to get the results. But is it what sustainability you're going to get? You realize some people saying, like, for some reason, I working out every day and now I can't lose no weight. I can't drop no weight. Like, what I had to do again? And they believe training more will do it. No, it's that you haven't periodized your training to work into what you want to achieve.
The chat room is blazing. We are over an hour. Guys, just give me 10 more minutes of your time. So let's go and get some questions.
Let's get some.
Sure. Let's get some questions here. We have from Damian Daniel, who asks, do NGBs request their coaches take these courses? And I'm guessing he's speaking to the courses that the TTOC is putting on. Tony, you want to give some insight as regards to that?
I can say that once TTOC posts out a course, it's out there to the public. It's up to the administrators of the NGBs to be able to look at it and send their coaches. I can say from a 361-degree standpoint, all our coaches are involved in any course that is happening out there. Not because I'm doing it, but because of the fact that I think it's important education-wise, right? It's education. Because it might not always be in my environment or in 361 degrees environment, but someone might come and want to ask you a question for assistance and support. And you don't want people to be given wrong information, and better we be educated to give the educated answer. So yes, I believe that you should be educating all your staff in NGBs once they're in sport. Get them involved, get them on the courses. And right now it's free, you don't even have to pay.
Exactly.
Yeah, what I would like to see is more NGBs just letting their coaches know that, listen, we need to step up, and encouraging them to go out and get educated. So I think if they do that and coaches step in, because there's a fear. A lot of coaches are a little afraid of science. It's not a popular subject in school. It's not something that we're comfortable with as a society. We are not mathematically inclined. We are not scientifically inclined as a society, so therefore it's not something that we feel easy doing. But what a lot of people realize once they get into it, and it actually helps them quite a lot.
Well, we have one comment here from Ms. Protein, who said, educated staff is the way forward. Just want to pull up another comment from Holisanka, who said, nothing stands on one leg. Integration is the key for success. And I think that speaks to what the whole concept of LTAD, as well as the other concept that we were speaking to, whereby it's about mental health, sports psychology, is about nutrition, is about diet, is about strength and conditioning. All of these falls under periodization, and it falls under sports science specifically. So yes,
we said high performance have many elements, and all must be in tandem, right? Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay.
Many.
We're going to take a quick break and recognize the support that Lucas Aid has done for the men's national futsal team and Futsal868. before we come back to just give our closing thoughts and recommendations to everyone, not only competitive sport providers and stakeholders, but everyone when it comes to sport and science. We'll be right back.
Hi, good day. This is Kareem Perry. Now finish one of my personal workouts, and I just wanted to say from the National Men's Futsal team, thank you very much, Futsal8, for being our #1 sponsor. We really appreciate it.
We want to say thank you very much to Lucasade for being a sponsor with us, and look out in July where we have a social media engagement with Lucasade. Before we continue, a shout out to Anthony. Big shout out with smiles too. From
Queenies.
Hello, Queenies.
So we want to say thank you very much, gentlemen, for taking this opportunity. We went over the hour mark, but it's always a pleasure to speak sports science with you guys. Closing remarks, closing words as regards to sport and science in Trinidad and Tobago, and even our viewers who are outside of Trinidad and Tobago when it comes to making themselves better through this sector that is science.
Right, Chris, I'll close up.
All right. Yeah, I would say I think what 361 wants and hopes for is more involvement in every sport. I would like to see not just NGBs, but I would like to see the Ministry of Sport company understand the role that science plays in sport, and that the way forward now for all sport has to involve science. If it doesn't, we are basically just staying put in the same range that we've been in for the last 10 years, and we won't be going forward. So we need to embrace the science, and we need to put the scientific infrastructure in place for sports, in all sports, so that we can make that progress. And 361 is one of those companies that can do that and can definitely assist any sport to put that infrastructure in place and make that leap forward.
Right. I think from our side as 361 Degrees, we are here to support and help. And that's what it's all about. From the grassroots level, we are here to help. People believe that only when we become elite athletes is when you get exposed to high performance. And 361 says no. That's not what it is. We are here to help everyone that we can, because we believe that there are a lot of athletes that are hidden, that don't see the limelight, whether it be for financial or whatever, they don't see it. 361 Degrees would like to bring those people to the forefront, bring those athletes out. Show Trinidad and Tobago the true potential with athletes and development and sport. We look at talent ID. That's a key role. Where do we start from? Community level. Not the elite. We start at the community level. That's where talent ID has to be. We have to do the talent detection, talent identification, talent selection, talent development. but it begins with the communities. It begins at the grassroots. But I don't think people understand that. And again, that's a scientific way of how we get to where we want to get to in sport, and we have to look at it in that manner. And again, as I say, 361 is here to assist anyone, anywhere in the country, as best as we can, with all that we have and all the experience and expertise that we have under our belt. We have worked with many sports: hockey, football, boxing, swimming, many sports, rugby, and it's great to see the athletes change their mindset. Great to see the athletes involved. And I'm the young athletes, as I'm saying, we have young swimmers in Mayaro, and they are excited. Unfortunately, COVID has left us out. But
DK says that he will reaching out, and with a remark like that, I would like you to share with us how can DK get in contact with you and 361.
You can definitely contact our administrator and coordinator is Alicia Casimir. I think she's online as well. And you can contact her. You can contact us as well by email at nextlevel, NEXXLEVEL @gmail.com. And you can also contact Alicia Casimir at 467-9092. And she can lead you in any direction after. So she will be the contact, Alicia Casimir, 467-9092. And our email address, NEXXLEVEL, LEVEL 361 @gmail.com.
She don't stick. She
have
it up already. Look at there. She's not playing.
Very, very dependable, and our administrator for all that is needed. You can contact her, and everything else will be done from there on. So feel free to contact her, and we will be there to support and help as soon as we know. COVID is an issue at this point in time, but we are here to help all sports in Trinidad and Tobago.
Gentlemen, thank you very much for being a part of the program. This is part 3 of the 4-part series. But today we speak sport and science, as has been said by Mr. Karen Modest. Always a wealth of information from Mr. Marcano. Great session today. And I echo those sentiments as well. A great session from yourself and also Mr. Gill. Thank you for joining us on Futsal 868 Corner Talks on a Father's Day. Any shout-outs, guys? Any shout-outs to fathers and father figures in your lives before you leave?
Unfortunately, my dad is passed, but I always shout him out. He's always a part of me. He made me who I am. And again, all fathers. And I know there are sometimes mothers that are fathers as well. And you as well celebrate this day because you are there for the children. Everyone, happy Father's Day.
Christopher, you were saying?
Yeah, and I'll just like to shout out all fathers as well.
Chris, shout out your dads, man. Come there, man.
And my dad, Marshall, who pretty unique guy, I have to say. You know what I mean? So I hope he's excited. That's the man who got me into cycling, and into sports just generally. You know, that's the man that did it all. So give him a big hello. And to all the parents out there, and especially the sporting fathers out there, man, keep doing what you're doing. You know, bonding with your kids through sports is probably the best bond you can ever get.
What a way.
So keep up that good work.
Thank you very much, gents. And on behalf of Futsal 868, we wish you all safety during this week, even during these COVID-19 times. And may God continue to richly bless each one of you all. And stay safe. And definitely, wherever you see Futsal 868, you're going to see 361 is not too far behind, guys. Trust and believe that. So,
vaccinate to operate, Jeffrey. Let me vaccinate to operate.
All right. So, have a great one, gents, and we'll be in contact very soon. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye-bye.
Have a good one.
Thanks.
So, that was 361 who came and spoke in relation to sport and science. It was really great. But if you didn't get a chance to see the show, please that's okay. You could follow us and check us out. Like our Facebook page, subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow us on Instagram and Twitter. Yes, people, we asking you to like us on Facebook, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and follow us on Instagram and Twitter. Very soon, we'll be having our own Twitter spaces, continuing education, sport education, of course. And it has been a wonderful pleasure once again to be a part of your Sunday evening. We wish you all great blessings and success on this, another episode of Futsal868 Corner Talks. Next week, we speak sports and mental health. Have a great week ahead. Bye.